Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our economics presentation on ESPN as Disney's Albatross. So really quick, going in to meet the team, I'm not going to say everyone's name, but it's pretty much everyone that's in the classroom right now. And going into our table of contents, what we're going to talk about today. First, we're going to go over the main important definitions of this case. Then we're going to go over ESPN and how they were acquired by Disney. Following that up, we're going through the history of streaming services and going over bundling as a process of that. Then the history of ESPN and Disney, looking ahead for the two, and then wrapping everything up with the conclusion. So starting off with our important definitions, we really have four main ones that need to be, well known. The first one is going to be streaming. And obviously in this day and age, streaming has been something that has become extremely prominent in our society, from services such as Hulu, obviously Disney and ESPN, Netflix, all these kind of things. And then there's even, different websites such as YouTube and now even social media apps like TikTok, all which have some form of streaming on them. And it's just really been something that has been on the rise in our society as of late. Next, bundling. Bundling is a really interesting concept, and we're obviously going to discuss this a little more later. But the main idea is to take a product that usually hasn't been selling great and packaging it with one that has been selling well and selling those two as, a bundle, selling them together. That will then increase the amount of sales that the product that has not been selling as much gets, overall usually increasing revenue, and it also decreases the marketing cost overall, because if you're bundling something together, you don't have to market each individual item. You can just market the bundle and save costs that way. Next, the monopoly. Obviously, the past couple of days and weeks in class, we've been talking about a monopoly, and the dictionary definition of that is exclusive possession or control of the supply of or trade in a commodity or service. And this will be obviously talked about later in the case as well. And finally, the most interesting one, is going to be the albatross. So obviously the albatross, as many of you know, is just a bird, but in this case of Disney and ESPN, an albatross is something that causes really the purse place or entity a large problem that's extremely difficult to get rid of. So it's kind of just a piece of a puzzle that's kind of hindering to the overall success of any certain organization. And I believe Will be talking about that later as well, but now I'm going to pass it off to Chris to talk about the acquisition.
Disney acquired ESPN by buying a majority share of Capital Cities ABC, the owner of ESPN, on August 1st, 1995. Disney purchased 80% of Capital Cities ABC for $19 billion, or $32.6 billion in today's money. At the time, Disney just secured the strongest media and entertainment company in ABC. Then Disney CEO Michael Eisner was quoted saying, "Exporting American entertainment is one of the things we do very well." The ABC deal will allow Disney to further their development and expansion into new markets. This made Disney the largest media company in terms of market capitalization, with a strong national distribution network for its programming. ESPN had been experiencing a lot of growth in the previous years before the deal. It was the largest sports news broadcaster and watched by many of the ABC viewers. ESPN broadcast NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL, and NCAA games each year. Notably, in 1987, ESPN acquired the rights to broadcast 8 NFL games that season, all on Sunday nights. This ESPN Sunday Night Football would become the highest-rated NFL broadcasts for the next 17 years. ESPN would then go on to launching ESPN Radio in 1992, ESPN2 in 1993, and ESPN Classic in 1997 to expand their viewership. Clearly, ESPN had a lot to bring to ABC, and ABC had a lot to bring to Disney, but it still remained unclear how ESPN would work with Disney's programming.
On October 29, 2007, Hulu.com was launched as a private beta site. Hulu was a joint venture between AOL, Comcast, Facebook, MSN, MySpace, and Yahoo. NBC and Fox were one of the first content distributors to join. Hulu became known to the public on March 12, 2008. A bunch of Hollywood executives saw the potential in streaming, so they thought they could make money off of making older television shows and newer shows available. At the beginning, Hulu was divided into free and paid subscriptions. The free service was limited in the amount of content accessible to users and was only accessible by computer only. The paid service had a larger amount of content and was accessed by Hulu applications on computers, mobile devices, and connected televisions. In November of 2010, Hulu Plus launched an expanded content library including full seasons, day-after access to current season content, and more episodes of shows available through free Hulu. Hulu rebranded its free content in 2016 in a joint venture with Yahoo named Yahoo View. Hulu launched a live television streaming service that currently has more than 20 million subscribers, and they added 3 million new subscribers from January to May of 2018. Next, Netflix was founded by Reed Hastings and Mark Randolph. They launched the company in 1997 with an initial investment of $2.5 million. A large amount of this money came from Randolph's mom. The company founder's intention was to become the media equivalent of Amazon. In 1997, VHS tapes and DVDs were not used that much, but the founders of Netflix decided to take a chance on this technology. They also planned to have a website where people could buy movies online. At the current time, $20 a month for subscribers would allow them to rent an unlimited number of DVDs one at a time. The DVDs arrived in the mail in the new Netflix red envelopes. After 3 years, Netflix was losing money, so they knew they had to come up with a solution. This would eventually lead them to creating an online streaming service that allowed customers to rent movies off of the internet, which made it more convenient for customers. And lastly, Google acquired YouTube in 2006 for $1.65 billion. YouTube was founded by Chad Hurley, Stephen Chen, and Jawed Karim. They met while working for PayPal. Hurley was known to be a designer when Chen and Karim were engineers. On February 14, 2005, these men bought the YouTube domain name and began building the website. It was a beta site that launched in May of 2005, and after the site had a few successful months' performance, these men put together a proposal for venture capital firms, and they were able to receive $11.5 million in funding from Sequoia Capital to get the business going. YouTube became publicly known in December of 2005 after Saturday Night Live aired its first video short called Lazy Sunday. It seemed like no one at SNL believed that the video short would work, but they ended up being wrong. The next day, a lot of people were talking about the SNL rap video. The only way to find the video was to search the name of the video on Google and then click on the YouTube link. This allowed for the whole world to be introduced to sharing videos on YouTube. And now I will pass it to Will, who will explain bundling.
So next I'm going to be talking about bundling and how this relates to our case with ESPN and Disney as well. So the definition of bundling is the combination of cable or satellite channels, for example, a sports package. And so basically the historical cable TV business starts with the fact that in any given market, there is usually 3 or 4 subscription TV providers to satellite companies or 1 or more cable providers. These providers sign multi-year deals to buy content from media companies, for example, ESPN, Discovery, and Time Warner. And then they bundle all of these media companies together and pass the cost of these contracts that they have signed along to the consumer. And every 3 to 5 years, these content contracts come up for renewal, and the cable providers are effectively forced to pay whatever increase ESPN and other companies ask for or risk losing millions of subscribers. The main problem with this is that ESPN has these large contracts with these cable companies and satellite that have not run out and must stream their things on satellite and cable where they are losing money. Next, I'm going to be doing a little bit of an example for bundling, as well as saying how you can often increase your pricing power by bundling products together. But bundling doesn't always work for all businesses. It works best when the marginal cost of your product is low and your customers have wide and varied interests. So first we're going to look at the left graph here, and at a price of $2, you can see that the athlete as well as the average Joe will end up purchasing ESPN, and the revenue from this will be $4. Since this brings in the most revenue in this scenario, it is the optimal price, and as predicted, this is the price halfway down the demand curve. Now, in the middle example, you have the athlete and the designer have switched places, and so on the axes, you can see the quantity as well as the value of HGTV to each person. This makes perfect sense. The preferences for ESPN and HGTV are typically negatively correlated. The more people that like ESPN, the less that they tend to like HGTV. And this is easy to work out, that the optimal price is also $2 and the revenue will also be $4 because the average Joe will purchase in this scenario. To look at the right and final example, everyone now gets $4 out of the value from the bundle. The island cable can charge $4 for the bundle everyone will buy, and the revenue will increase to $12. In this example, bundling increases revenue from $8 total with the first two examples combined to $12, a 50% increase with the bundling idea. What is going on here? Basically, because preferences for the two channels are inversely correlated, bundling the two goods makes demand more similar, flattening the demand curve and ultimately allowing for price to be $12. Lastly, I'm going to talk a little bit about why ESPN is Disney's albatross. And like Kyle said earlier, albatross is a bird, but it also is something that causes you great problems from which you can't really escape, or they prevent you from doing what you want to do. And so this relates to ESPN based off of the fact that in around 2016, ESPN lost around 600,000 subscribers in just 1 month alone. And so basically they've had declining subscriber numbers consistently through the cable as well as satellite television. And so things like the NBA, MLB, and college football playoff being broadcasted, people want to watch still, but not as many people. Next being declining ratings across cable providers, kind of similar to the subscribers. And then finally, the rising content costs. So things like I said earlier, the NBA, MLB, and even college football playoff, the prices aren't lowering anytime soon, but they're actually rising with time. And this coupled with lower subscriber numbers makes ESPN not make money for Disney and in turn actually make them lose money. So now I'm going to pass it to Patrick to talk about the history of ESPN.
Since its inception in 1979 by Bill Rasmussen, ESPN has strived to provide 24-hour coverage for all collegiate and professional sports. ESPN began on September 7, 1979 by launching its flagship program SportsCenter along with broadcasting amateur hockey games. SportsCenter began as a daily news program that provides highlights and analysis of the day's sports events, and the program has thrived ever since. Just 1 year after its creation, ESPN began to gain popularity when they secured the rights to broadcast the 1980 NFL Draft. That same year, ESPN went on to air the NCAA March Madness tournament, which gained popularity for both the network and the tournament as a whole. In 1982, ESPN broke into the professional sports scene when they began to broadcast live coverage of NBA basketball games. 5 years later, the company went on to sign the first cable coverage deal in NFL history when they acquired the rights to broadcast Sunday Night Football in 1987. Overall, the 80s proved to be a critical point for ESPN's growth as they established themselves as a top competitor within the sports broadcasting industry. ESPN's explosive growth carried into the 90s as they acquired exclusive rights to the NHL in 1993. This deal gave them access to a broadcasting deal in each of the 4 major U.S. sports. That same year, ESPN launched a spin-off network called ESPN2 in order to keep up with the growing demand they had realized with their primary cable network. The history of the network reveals how it has always been forward-looking in its determination to provide the best sports content, as in the following years, they began to branch out to alternative media channels. Their website launch of ESPN.com in 1995 and their publication of the ESPN magazine in 1998 quickly became very successful as their already established customer base flocked to these alternative channels. The company then broke into the streaming business with their launch of ESPN3 in 2005. The service focused on delivering live sports programming in an online format to its customers. In 2014, the network partnered with the Southeastern Conference to launch the SEC Network, which capitalized on the growing collegiate fan base. The SEC Network focused solely on live coverage and highlights that involved SEC teams. ESPN's most recent major addition to the company's offerings was with the rollout of ESPN Plus in 2018. This is a subscription-based streaming service that provides additional programming to customers who pay a monthly fee. Each of these ventures has helped ESPN capture a major market share in the sports network industry, and the company's forward-looking focus has allowed them to stay a step ahead of the competition.
I wanted to take some time to give an in-depth analysis of Disney in terms of its streaming history. The timeline starts in August of 2017, where Disney announced that the company was going to create its own streaming service. Essentially, Disney wanted to create a service that would allow users to stream its movies and TV shows. As a result, Disney removed all of its productions off Netflix for customers to watch. With the withdrawal of these movies and shows, people would have to subscribe to Disney's service to access these fan-favorite films. The company also made sure to announce a new platform just for ESPN. The company realized it was going to need some assistance supporting these new platforms, so Disney purchased major stock in the company BAMTech. This deal was valued at approximately $3.7 billion. BAMTech allows Disney to deliver live and on-demand videos to their consumers. To give some background, BAMTech is responsible for giving media coverage of the MLB to consumers. In November of 2017, Disney acquired 21st Century Fox for $52 million. This deal was significant because it gave Disney 30% stock in Hulu, which will be important coming up in this presentation. In April of 2018, Disney launched ESPN Plus. This service allowed you to watch matches that were not available on TV, such as hockey, soccer, boxing, golf, rugby, and cricket. This program also allowed access to exclusive documentaries, scores to all the sporting events, highlights from matches, and live news. The company offered plans as low as $4.99 a month and went up from there. Moving forward, in 2019, Disney finished its acquisition of 21st Century for $71.3 billion. Essentially, this deal allowed Disney to have majority stock in Hulu. Hulu was taken over by Disney in May of 2019 and had access to what titles were put onto the platform. The company finally launched its Disney Plus platform in November of 2019. This service allowed for Disney to stream its productions straight to consumers without the help of outside companies. A huge selection of Disney originals were put on the platform, but the company also included new content that was only available to watch if you had this specific service. With Disney having control of Hulu and having its own services of ESPN Plus and Disney Plus, the company created a bundle to access all these programs for one price. We will break down this bundle later in the presentation.
Today, Disney and ESPN offer several different ways of getting their content. So first, Disney, they provide general entertainment, news, and sports through things like Disney Plus, Disney Studios, which is their movie studio, and ESPN and 21st Century Fox, which they bought in 2019, and then Hulu, which they also bought in 2019. And they're the only global company to provide all three of these different entertainment types. Then next for ESPN, so their live sports, which are non-ESPN Plus shows or programs, are limited to customers that either have cable with an ESPN package or some sort of streaming service with a live TV package, such as Hulu with live TV, YouTube TV, or a direct TV stream. And then for ESPN's earnings, similar to how they used to always make money just through cable, so this is through affiliate fees. So these fees are per subscriber fees paid from the cable or streaming company that are built into that price that go to ESPN for having ESPN in their package. Next would be that advertisement income, which most big media companies get. And then finally is the paid ESPN Plus streaming. So this is for those ESPN Plus programs and shows, as well as pay-per-view things like UFC fights and boxing on ESPN. And then, as I just said, part of the ESPN Plus paid subscription is that exclusive content. So you have PGA Tour Live, NHL out-of-market package, and UFC exclusives that are only streamed on ESPN and no other sports website. Now I'm going to go over a few the bundling options that are currently available today for Disney and ESPN. So first is Disney Plus. So it's $7.99 a month with ads. This comes with Disney's full content library, all their original movies and original TV shows, as well as legacy content that they've gotten through different acquisitions, such as Marvel, Star Wars, and Fox, as well as Pixar and some of the older things that we always remember from our childhood. Next is going to be an example for how you get live sports through ESPN Plus. So I'm going to use Hulu with live TV as an example. So for this, it's $69.99 a month with ads. So this will get you live and local TV channels like what people would be used to just through their regular cable, as well as live sports through ESPN. And then also you get access to Hulu's full content library, which is similar to Disney's. They have all sorts of different movies, shows, and original content that they make, as well as ESPN Plus and Disney Plus in this bundle. And then finally, this wouldn't have any live sports through ESPN, but it's called the Disney Bundle Trio. And what this gets you is Disney's full content library, as well as Hulu's, and then access to ESPN Plus shows and programs. But the one thing you're missing out here, which is a big thing for a lot of customers, is they don't have access to live sports streaming. And then this one is only $12.99 a month with ads. So just to wrap things up, I want to go through two options that Disney has moving forward in regards to ESPN. So first would be to continue improving their ESPN and Hulu streaming, which would be mainly focused on profitability, as they've already built up a great infrastructure for the two services. They're just struggling on the profitability of the two at the moment. Then this would allow them to maintain that full array of general entertainment, news, and sports library that I was talking about, and how that they're the only company with that power to provide all of those services. Then the next big part would be they've spent so much already setting up this ecosystem. It would be a waste of a lot of work and years and money to just throw it away or just to sell ESPN to someone else. Then another option would be for them to spin off ESPN and Hulu. So this would be turning them into a new separate company or like a subsidiary. They're a little bit more separate from Disney. And this would also launch ESPN and streaming a la carte, which is the kind of pay for you what content you want, don't pay for what you don't. So you can pick and choose exactly what sports, what type of shows you want. So you're not paying for all this stuff that you're never going to watch. And then this would also allow Disney to focus on their original content, which would be in line with their original Disney Plus plan of focusing solely on Disney and Disney products. So based on these two options, we think it'd be great it'd be smarter for Disney to continue on their current path of using paid subscription access to ESPN and ESPN Plus through cable and streaming services. ESPN's going to lose cable subscribers. That's nothing they can do about it. It's imminent with everybody cutting the cord. But streaming options are replacing the need for those cable customers, as they are still bringing people back in as paid subscribers to get that ESPN access, because people love their sports and they want to keep watching them. So there's definitely still that market there for people paying for ESPN through streaming. And then this has also allowed Disney to provide that content for everyone. So that through their Disney studios, they can make different original movies and shows, and then still have that access to news and sports through ESPN. Our group would like to thank you guys for coming to listen to our presentation today. Now we'll open up to any questions that you might have for any of us.